This video is for entertainment purposes only. None of the information you're about to hear should be considered medical advice, and you should always consult a licensed medical practitioner before embarking on a health or lifestyle change. Okay, so we're with Anita from Ketogenic Woman. So it's good to see you. Happy or thankful that you came on here to do this interview for my followers.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, the saying uh, it's sad to admit that I haven't. I just recently came across your YouTube channel. I don't know. It's YouTube is a big world. Sometimes
Yes.
you don't find everyone all at once. But when I reached out to you, you were right on top of this. So I really appreciate that. Um, so usually I'd like to start the interviews basically by finding out sort of what got you into the keto space, and what led you to living a ketogenic lifestyle in the first place.
Okay. Yeah, that's been a long, over 10-year plus journey that
Yeah.
started even beyond that. I did actually my very first foray into keto, but I at that time it wasn't called keto; it was just low carb. Was with Atkins. I followed the Atkins diet back in the late 70s, somewhere around there when that first came out. It was considered to be very fringe, I think. A lot of people, would have called it dangerous back then. And so I tried that for a while, and I was very successful. I've had a lifetime of dieting and battling extra weight, and but I, I guess at that time I didn't understand the whole thing with carbs and how addictive they were, and to me it was a temporary diet. And so I went off it, went back to normal eating, and found my way somewhere about 12 or so years ago to be over 320 pounds, very overweight. And so then I thought, well, the only thing that's ever worked for me after a lifetime of different diets was Atkins, low carb. And I started to do that again. And that's when I first started hearing about keto, was about just 10 to 12 years ago. And it just kept popping up everywhere. And but at that time, it was just when the internet, well, to me it was just when the internet was becoming popular, and you could find things online, and I kept finding just men were doing it. I couldn't find any examples of women doing it. And so I started a blog called ketogenicwoman.com, and it was so that I could talk about my journey with other women. Back then, blogging was more of almost like an online diary,
Hmm.
and so that's how that started. And then after a while, I realized that I kind of learned more about keto, and realized that it was just more than what I had been doing. And so then from there, I started hearing about Ketovore and Carnivore, and it just these things evolve over time. And so today I'm basically mostly doing carnivore. And at this point, I've lost about 140 pounds in this evolution, and have some more to lose. But yeah, still working on it.
Yeah, no, that's it seems to be a common sort of theme. Like obviously you've been around the low carb uh, thing for quite a while. I remember my dad decades ago. He tried it back when it first came out as well. I don't know how. I was too young to really know what he was doing, or probably even
Right.
care at that point. But yeah, no, it seems a lot of people sort of started on that. Um, and you're right about the evolution of keto. Is that I also find that a lot of people that start, no matter how they start keto, it sort of tends to get cleaner and cleaner if you stick to it,
Yeah.
and then eventually, like yourself, I'm 95% carnivore. I still eat some vegetables here and there, but I feel my best just eating, that protein and like a higher fat protein kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
So you said, yeah, you have a blog. Is that still something that you do, or?
Well, I still have the website, but it's not the same. In the beginning, I would put up things like what I did during the day. It was it was like a online journal slash
Sure.
diary, but now I would call it more of just a place to put my recipes. Although
Sure.
most of my recipes now are on YouTube.
Mhm.
And my blog is actually really far behind my YouTube channel because it's so much easier to film a recipe than it is to write it up on a website. And so I am behind on I have more recipes on YouTube than I have on my website. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Yeah, I think it makes sense though. Like you say, that's another part of the evolution. You went from the original online diary type thing to,
Yeah.
which is what YouTube is turning into for a lot of people as well, right? Like it's a place
It
that you
is.
document
Yeah.
your journey. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wish I had started the YouTube part when I started my journey, but my journey was mostly finished before I started my documenting any of it. So you know, it's one of those things you live and learn, but that's why I'm
Yeah.
here now.
Yeah.
So
I kind of have the same experience because I had lost I guess about 100 pounds before I actually started putting anything on YouTube, and part of that was the feeling of, well, who's going to want to watch a 60-plus-year-old woman cooking recipes who's still overweight on YouTube? Like nobody's going to want to see that, and that's kind of the mindset that I had. So it kind of took a lot of convincing of other people to say, no, you should go on YouTube.
yeah,
I'm glad I did.
yeah. I think I thought the same way about before I started too. No one really convinced me to do it, and had I really didn't know what was going to come of it doing it. It's the same way, like a 50-year-old male talking about keto and stuff like that. I see a lot of couples channels doing very well,
Yeah.
but it's you're right. You never know until you try it, though.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I've seen you're right. You've got a lot of recipe videos on your channel. Is it mainly just recipe type videos that you do?
Uh, that's what I was doing for the first 2 years. I'm coming up to 3 years on YouTube. So for the first couple of years, it was pretty much all recipes, and then I had people, oh, you should, telling me you should try this, you should do that. I started doing something called what I call Tuesday Talks, and it's just kind of a weekly little update of how things are going, and if I have some information to talk about that I feel like talking about, I'll do that. So there's no cooking on that. I try to keep it short, 10 minutes or so. And so those were really well received. And then I decided, I want to try having someone on my channel and interviewing them. And so I did one of those, and I found that I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed having a conversation with somebody else who has been through kind of the same things I've been through. And so I'm glad I did that. So now I'm trying to do more of that. And so there's a few of those on my channel now.
Yeah, yeah. I saw I caught your live with Neely the other night there too.
Yeah,
That was
that
good to
was a
see.
lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Neely's great too. I've had her on the podcast before as well. She's got a
Yep,
great story too, and the way that she's keeping her family, healthy is great information for everybody to have.
it is.
So, yeah, and that's why I actually started my channel doing these kind of interviews. It wasn't with people on YouTube because I didn't know anyone on YouTube at that time. It was all from people on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
But after I got to know a few uh, people in the keto space on YouTube. Then I picked it back up, and because like you, I enjoy talking to other people about this kind of thing. And ultimately, I'm just trying to bring as many different stories to YouTube as I can, so that because we
Yeah.
all know, you know, it's going to resonate with someone, and that's all I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm doing too. I'd like to share more stories, especially with people in my age group, because there's not as many out there. I'm starting to see them now, but I would love to see more people and have more people to talk to that are, like I'm 65. So, that's, you see a lot of young people on YouTube, and it would be nice to have more people in my age group, both men and women, 60 and up, and, because we have stories to tell and a long history of health problems and dieting and obesity, and it's and we probably don't go to gyms and things like that. So it's a little bit of a different story than a lot of the ones you hear on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's getting that information out there is really important too, because I think a lot of, or I'm afraid that a lot of people get to an older age and think, well,
Yeah.
it's too late to do anything, right? So, whereas
Yes.
really it's never too late to make a change and change for the better.
Yeah, it's never too late. I had a doctor actually tell me one time that it was impossible. She used those exact words. It's impossible to lose weight after 40. And I carried that around for years, like just
Mhm.
as part of my belief system.
Right.
It's so not true. It is so
Yeah.
not true.
No, no, anybody can make that lifestyle change, and it is good. Yeah, you're right. I'm starting to see more and more uh, people in my age group and your age group, and
Hmm.
even beyond that
Yeah.
are changing their life, and trying to make it as best they can for however long they can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that's a good thing.
yeah. So, do you any sort of specific fasting, or is it kind of just a eat when you're hungry and
I have done a lot of tweaking of my, well, I was keto for quite a few years before I switched to carnivore, and that was kind of a slow switch to keto, ketovore, carnivore.
Mhm.
But even with carnivore, I've done a lot of tweaking and trying to find the sweet spot for me. I tried the high fat carnivore. I've done sardine challenges. I've done all kinds of things, and intermittent fasting. Yes, I seem to have fallen into a natural pattern of intermittent fasting. I don't do it deliberately. I find that I eat approximately twice a day on most days. And I never would have thought that would be a normal way of eating for me, because I really like to eat. I enjoy food very much. And, that was always what I saw as my problem, is that I just liked food too much. Now I know, of course, that it was the wrong foods, the wrong types of foods. And so, so the fasting, I have done some deliberate fasting, but mostly right now it's just a natural fasting. I get up in the morning. By about 10, I want to have something, and so I have something at 10, and that's usually a full meal. And then I have my second meal at 4:30, and then I don't eat till the next day at 10. So I don't even know how many hours that is, but it's kind of an intermittent fast.
sure, yeah, and I think that's sort of what I tend to lean towards. Like I've actually been experimenting with eating like a fairly high protein meal in the morning before
Yeah.
I go to work, because I've never been someone to eat in the mornings. And I actually feel pretty good doing that, um, because I've done, I went out like a whole year basically eating one meal a day, or having
Oh.
a real shrunk eating window, like
Yeah.
for 2 or 3 hours in the evening. And I don't know, I just found it way too hard to get enough out
Yeah.
in that time, basically.
Yeah. I have tried doing one meal a day, and that is exactly my issue with that, is that I don't feel like I'm getting enough. Well, I mean, I know that I wasn't. If you look at the macros of a one meal a day for me, I just can't eat that much in one sitting. I have to spread, my protein out into two portions at least,
Hmm.
and even now and then I do three, but I think for people that as they're aging, they do need more protein, and so for me, it's important. It's more important to get my protein in rather than say, oh, I eat one meal a day, because I know a lot of people do like that. I just can't do it. So
Hmm.
I don't.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And it's unfortunately, I think a lot of the hype about fasting has pushed it a little bit too far with some
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
It's a good thing. There's definite benefits to it, but the way I look at it is I don't see that there's more benefit to stretching it out farther than what you feel good on.
yeah.
But that's just my personal opinion. Lots of people, do quite well by doing, a 3-day fast once a month kind of thing.
Yes, I have heard that too,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I haven't attempted a 3-day fast, and
yeah,
so far I don't. I don't have a desire to attempt it.
yeah, yeah. I hear ya. So you're saying you've done like the sardine fasts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you try it? So you're saying you try to do different things to, switch it up and see if different things work. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I like sardines, but I'm not sure I could handle that. But if
I
it helps.
enjoy doing little challenges here and there.
Mhm.
And I do it with other people generally. A group of us will do it together. It's kind of fun. It's a good metabolic switch up, or however, a reset maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I've done a couple of those. I don't think people have to do that sort of thing. If especially if you don't like sardines, like
Yeah.
don't even try if you don't like sardines. But yeah, it was just sort of a fun thing for me to do actually. But I have a weird sense of fun sometimes, so.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not doing that kind of thing. That's just sort of a once in a while thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've never really tried to do anything specific as far as like little challenges and stuff like that, but I do definitely see them like the egg fasts and
Yeah.
beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and sardine
Yes.
fasts, and the protein sparing modified fasts and stuff like that. It seems like you could do a different challenge every month if you really wanted to.
You certainly could, and I have seen some channels where they do exactly that. They do a different challenge every month, and
Right.
and their followers do it along with them, and it's always nice if you've got people doing something with you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. I just find a lot of the times it gets people get burnt out on stuff like that. But it's all depends on how much people enjoy it, I guess.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. I can relate to that because I think at some point I got burnt out on doing things like that, and always
Mhm.
trying to come up with something new for the next month. And really it's not really about doing that. It's about keeping it interesting for people, and I have people that kind of look to me for some direction, and I don't always have that direction. I don't always have that to give, but I can only do what I'm doing at the time, and sometimes that is very boring. I mean, sometimes uh, you know, steak on a plate is all I want to do for days on end, rather than an interesting recipe or an interesting challenge.
Sure.
Yeah, it's there. You've got to do what's right for you and your body and your goals.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I can relate to that. Like I've watched all the other channels around that do, and I have nothing against how anyone else does things, but most other channels do like what I eat in a day kind of videos every week and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
the problem is what I eat in a day is so boring that I'm afraid nobody's really going to care. So I don't really get into that kind of
Yeah.
content, but that's why most of what it's on my channel is interviews like this, and then
Yeah.
little recipe videos that I come up with kind of from time to
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah. I have done some what I eat in a day, and I think where it does help is that I do have people that come to my channel who are brand new, and they don't really, they see carnivore and ketovore as like one kind of food every day for the rest of your life kind of thing. They don't
right.
see all the possibilities, and so I do try to show some of those possibilities.
Hmm. Yep. No, that's anything to help the people just starting to
Yeah.
understand what the possibilities are. I'm all for that. That's
Yeah.
because that's the biggest hurdle I think for people just starting is
It
they're
can be.
worried.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're afraid that they're never going to eat anything that they enjoy again, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you um, like you say, do you do any specific exercising with your diet, or is it more?
Um, yeah, but that's relatively new for me. I didn't exercise for many, many years, other than maybe the occasional walk, which, was hard to do when you don't do any exercise.
Mhm.
But the last couple years, it's something that I've started, I've started on again, like something to look at. I started regular walking. And then eventually I joined a fitness class that was 3 days a week. Some weight train like resistance for older women. It was kind of a senior ladies group, and that was great. I really enjoyed doing that, and aquafit, those sorts of things. I do have an injured knee, and it's I actually have an appointment next week with my doctor because she's got the results of my X-ray back and wants to talk to me about it. So that's challenging for my exercise, but I can still walk even with the injured knee. So I do so. I do I it's sort of hard to say because I lost most of my weight without exercising, but I feel like if I want to kind of go finish the journey and have some toning, and I'm now that I'm in my 60s, I feel like I need to think about muscle. That's why I want to eat more protein now, and I want to work on resistance training. I think those things they're important all your life, but if you haven't been doing it, they're really important when you're in my age group. When you're older and aging, we've got to do some resistance training, or we could end up in a wheelchair, and
Mhm.
I don't want that.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, and I've been sort of putting off. Like I was the same way. I was able to lose all the weight I needed to without exercising, but I do think I need to, and I'm really active during the day with my job and everything, and so I'm not too worried about movement wise. But I've got a bag of resistance bands in the closet, just collecting dust right now, which I should really just get out and get doing what I should be doing. But it's
Hmm.
just a matter of you know trying to make myself accountable and do it. I almost think I might have to start doing it on YouTube so I can get that accountability
Right,
a
right.
little bit. But yeah, no, that's good. I think that it is good for people to know too. Like if they're starting, they don't have to exercise
Right.
to lose the weight. that they need to lose. And then really, I guess, depending on how much weight you need to lose when you start, it almost isn't, really easy to exercise if you're trying to lose a lot of weight. So, but,
Yeah, and I think what I found is that as I was losing the weight and having more energy and getting better sleep and eating, proper nutritious food, that it was easier to go for walks. It was easier to get out and do things, and your whole mental attitude shifts a bit. And I felt, and especially when I went carnivore, there was something about just eating the meat. Sometimes I felt like I had energy to burn, and it kind of made me feel like getting out and doing things that I never felt like doing before.
mhm.
So, I think it's a chicken and egg thing. You hear people say, oh, well, you have to exercise to lose weight. Well, sometimes you just don't want to, and the weight is a hindrance. And once you lose the weight, then you feel like it. So I think it can work either way. And if you're thinking about exercise, when you're ready, you'll do it. You'll just want to do it.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a natural thing, because you're never going to feel like going to the gym if you have 150 pounds to lose, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
you know, it's, and I've told people the same thing that have asked me, like personally, I think working on your nutrition first is probably more important because, like we've always said, you can't outwalk a bad diet, right? So,
Right.
you could be in the gym 5 days a week, but if your diet is still garbage, then you're really not going to
Yeah.
get anywhere with it.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So you're saying you're basically carnivore now. So what's, like a typical day look for you as far as what you're eating these days?
Well, my first meal of the day is typically leftover steak or whatever meat was left over from the last, couple of days, and eggs. And that's my first meal is usually my biggest meal. I find both macro wise, like grams of protein, as well as probably calories. Like it's and volume. Like I usually just really eat a huge meal at about 10 o'clock,
Mm.
during the day. Then my dinner is typically smaller, and it'll be like burger patties, a steak, salmon. I'm really eating a lot of salmon lately because I'm finding I can eat more salmon than I can beef, but get more protein in at the same time. And I happen to like it, so
Yeah.
it's kind of a win-win. And yeah, that's it's kind of boring, but I really enjoy it. I don't
Mhm.
feel like I'm missing out on anything.
Sure. Yeah, no, it sounds good to me. And I guess that's another thing that, you know, people should keep in the back of their heads too, is that I think if you eat a bigger meal earlier in the day and then not so much in the evening kind of thing, it can help with your sleep patterns. And
Yeah.
it's because I don't know about yourself, but one of the things I'm really focused on these days is trying to improve my sleep.
Yes.
Because I think I've personally find that that's just as important as the diet. Because if you're not sleeping, then you're just harming yourself all over again.
I completely agree. I never really understood the whole sleeping thing, and as I learn more about it, I realize how important it is, and so I am trying to pay attention to that, because I mean, there was a time back in the 80s where it was a badge of honor to work 12, 14-hour days and
Mm.
have a terrible sleep, or not sleep. I mean, it was crazy. And now I feel like sleep is very important, and I do what I can to, anchor my circadian rhythm in the morning. I try to get out in the fresh air, look at the sun, do that kind of thing. And that's one of the reasons why I eat early in the day. Like I have that second meal between 4 and 4:30, I just feel like the earlier in the day that I finish eating, the better sleep I'm going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree that the earlier I stop eating, the better I sleep every night too. Like it's not coincidence. It's basically
Hmm.
just the way it works better that way. So,
Yeah.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're out on the west coast of Canada.
Yes. Yes. I'm on Vancouver Island.
Yeah. So you've
I
got
didn't realize you were Canadian until you said you were from, I think you're Ontario,
I'm in
right?
Ontario. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, it's great to have another Canadian on the
Yeah. Yeah.
podcast here for sure. So you must have some access to pretty good seafood out there then.
Yeah, I just moved to the island. I was over on the mainland until a couple months ago. But I've always had access to good seafood living where I live. I grew up close to Steveston, BC, and back in those days, you could just go to the boats and buy salmon directly from the fishermen off the boats, and it was great. I grew up eating salmon. My mom cooked a lot of it, and she canned her own salmon and everything.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's something that I'm very familiar with and love.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really enjoy it too. I actually, for the first time this summer, bought some last week and had it on the weekend. It's one of those things I don't think about because
Hmm.
where I am, it's not, you know, you can get fresh salmon, but it's not that easy to get and it's really
Right.
expensive. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's, I completely forgot about it all summer. I was focused on eating ribeyes and T-bones, but I completely forgot about the salmon. So
Yeah.
cool. So I won't take up too much of your time here tonight, but I like to try and as we wind up the podcast, I usually like to try and ask, if you went back to when you first started, like maybe not all the way back to the active
Hmm.
days,
Hmm.
you restarted and look at how it is you got started. Now, fast forward, if someone comes to you today, sort of how do you get them started and what would be your sort of advice to them to get started on this way?
Okay. I think I think what I wish I had done sooner, and the advice that I would give to people is to try to get to a point where you're eating mainly single ingredient foods. I when I started, the packaged keto goods were everywhere, and they were the thing, and I was totally into that. I didn't I guess I was dirty keto, and I didn't understand all of the ingredients and all the things that can happen to you and how it can keep you stalled. And so I feel better now as a 65-year-old than I ever did in my 30s, 40s, or 50s. And I'm on no medications. I have this bad knee that I go out walking on every day, and I'm pretty sure that the only reason I can do that is because I eat so much darn protein. And I feel like if you clean all those things out of your system and out of your diet, you the feelings that you have of clarity and energy are like you just never want to go back. And I get that everyone has to start somewhere, and I fully support people who come in on day one and need to go through their journey of trying those types of things, and need to use sweeteners and all the other different things. I would never judge anybody for doing that because I certainly did that. But if you can get to that point of start thinking about single ingredient foods and focus on that. If you have vegetables, great. They're a single ingredient food. You may find you do better after a while without them, but some people keep them and do great. Not everybody reacts to plants the way I mean, I have some real sensitivities. I can't do nightshades. There are certain things that if I eat them, I'm up all night with acid reflux and that sort of thing. So sticking to meats only is what I do now. But yeah, just it's never too late to start. And if you are in your 50s or 60s or 70s, just like don't listen to those people that say it's all downhill from here, because it hasn't been for me. I mean, I'm living my best life. If you're young and you haven't started, by all means start. Don't wait. But, if you're where I am, just start anyways. It doesn't matter. The time is going to pass anyways. And so why not, why not end your life with the best energy you can? I don't, well, that was kind of worded funny, but you know what I mean, right? Like make the last phases of your life, the last decades, the best that you can make them with the best health. No walkers and canes. If you can avoid that, why not? And part of my motivation was that I took care of my mom the last years of her life, and she had all those illnesses that are related with obesity. And I don't want that for myself. I would rather, be out in nature and drop from this earth then at that, just being outside, being, with people, being happy, than waiting it out in a nursing home or something. I kind of think it's what we all probably want for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. No, that's great advice. You're right. It's, a lot of us have gone through life thinking that, we're being told that there's nothing we can do about it until we take
Yeah.
things into our own hands and make the
Yeah.
changes we need to. Because, like I always like to say is that, or one thing I like to keep saying to myself is that you'll never ever know how good you can feel,
Yeah.
how bad you feel now until you start feeling good, right? Like,
Yes, yes. I think that's what I was trying to say. It's like
yeah,
when you're in the fog, sometimes you don't know you're in the fog until you step out into the clearing and it's like, oh, this is what it's like.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, okay, well, unless there's anything else you wanted to add, uh, we
I don't
can
think so.
wrap this up. And I really, again, really appreciate you coming on here and bringing this great information to the podcast. I'm sure everyone will enjoy listening to your words of wisdom. Like I said, I'm pretty sure most of my audience will know who you are already, but for any of them that don't, then
Well, I mean, like you said, YouTube is a big place, and I run into people, almost every day that I didn't know they were there, and there they are.
sure,
So, it's. But I do appreciate you asking me to be on, and thank you so much for that.
yeah, absolutely.